These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation.
Welcome to a Reckless Speculation Thursday edition of The Scoop here on Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. Our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department is here with some inside information and a little reckless speculation about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. Here he is, folks.
A little.
There he is.
It's the most wonderful day of the week. Reckless
It really
Speculation Thursday.
Oh.
Phil, it needs to be a national holiday, or at least a holiday here in Minnesota. Somebody petition Governor Tim Walz immediately. Let's get this as a declaration. Reckless Speculation Thursday.
We've been speculating recklessly for probably, I would say, like 6 or 7 years on our old radio show with you, and now like where we've officially said, hey, this is a safe space to throw ideas out, trades, whatever you want, right? And it is funny because there's a lot of people that still, like when we put clips out on social or we ask questions or whatever, that don't really get it. Like Declan put out a question we asked, or it was either Declan or AJ clipped the question from Purple Daily the other day, which is, hey, if you could only keep one of these 3 guys for the next 2 years, and you have to say goodbye to the other 2, Brian Flores, Danielle Hunter, Kirk Cousins. And of course, like I would say 20% of the responses are, well, that's a hypothetical question that would, like, why are you even asking that question? Why would you ever have to make that choice?
We're just
speculating recklessly.
But that's where the clips are confusing, because if you don't live the lifestyle, you don't understand the questions.
It's out of context.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why more people have to. Once you're in the lifestyle, then it becomes just the norm. So you start to recklessly speculate about a ton of things, and it doesn't have to be all sports.
I will tell you this much: being out and about a good amount the last couple of days, there's enough people that live this lifestyle. So we'll be okay.
And
for those on social media who just consume social media, who don't actually listen to this entire podcast or, consume an entire show, that's fine. That's well within your right. But yeah, just know that there are enough people who love what we do. So we appreciate all that love.
Speculating recklessly. So, okay. Let's start there. We can talk Dobbs and whatever, but we were talking off microphone. Let's look out to the broader picture future of the Vikings quarterback situation. We've dabbled in some of the mock drafts here, Doogie. We haven't gone full on like I want a mock season yet where we track all the mocks, but in dabbling, a lot of the mock drafts have the Vikings, in like that pick 20 range, drafting like the 4th quarterback off the board, whether it's a J.J. McCarthy or a Michael Penix from Washington. What are you sort of, as you look ahead toward March, April, May, that lead up to the draft, what do you think they're thinking? How aggressive, if let's say they push forward, they win 9 games or 10 games, they go to the playoffs, and they're not really in a position, much like the Chiefs were, 7 years ago when they were drafting like 23rd, they're not really in a position to pick Caleb Williams, for instance, or a Drake May. What do you think they're going to do in that first round?
Well, I love the question, Phil. By the way, the answer for me for that Purple Daily hypothetical that you threw out is Danielle Hunter. Like, I think they'd like to keep Danielle, and if there's a way, right, it all comes down to money. Is he looking for close to Bosa money, right? So that's where it could become a slippery slope. But there certainly is mutual interest. Like, I had somebody recently tell me that's close to Danielle that in an ideal world, Danielle finishes his career here in Minnesota. That's how much Danielle Hunter loves being a Minnesota Viking. So I think the answer to that question for me is Danielle Hunter. On your inquiry about what may take place come March, come April, will the Vikings go quarterback in the first round? I was with somebody in the last 24 hours who reminded me, hey, when you talk about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, you need to remind the audience how aggressive he is. How cutthroat he is, by the way, too, but how aggressive he is. It doesn't necessarily mean he'll always get what he wants, but he's going to make darn near every attempt to get what he wants. What this person, I believe, was alluding to is, let's say there's some sort of love fest with Drake May, the quarterback of North Carolina. Presumably he goes after Caleb Williams, the quarterback from USC. So Caleb goes number 1, whether it's Chicago making that selection via the Carolina pick or Chicago trades that pick somewhere else. We think Caleb Williams will be the number 1 overall pick. Where does Drake May go? Is Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver from Ohio State, number 2? Does Drake May even, become the second quarterback off the board? But presumably he's going somewhere in that top, 5 to 7-ish? The Vikings right now, whether it's 9 wins, 10 is aggressive, Phil. Like, do they go 4-1 in these final 5 games to get to 10 victories? But let's say they end up picking in that 19 to 22 range, which is more likely probably 9 wins, not 10 wins. What would it take to go from 21 to, let's say, pick 4, if that's the guy, right? And that's why I think it's a fun talker here on Reckless Speculation Thursday. Just what would it take to move up 15, 16, 17 spots? But what I'm getting at, the root of this is just remember that Kwesi, when he identifies something he wants, like, Judd, I don't know how much this was talked about, but they had some dialogue, right? It worked out to me perfectly because I think Jordan Addison has a very high ceiling, but they had some dialogue about moving up last year, right? Or I guess this year, last draft, moving up and drafting a quarterback. I'm not necessarily sure which one, but they had some dialogue about moving up for a quarterback. So I'm just saying, what if that takes place again? What would Kwesi be willing to offer? What would make logical sense if you're trying to move up from 21 to, let's say, 3 or 4?
What is Kwesi's appetite here? And I'm trying to think. I don't think we've seen this, though, in making such a move where you, in your mind, get what you want as far as going up in the draft, but you have to give up and lose a lot because I think his preference in life is to actually accumulate picks by going backwards. But that being said, so let's say just for the sake of this conversation, if it's Drake May, he's got to get to what, 4, probably 3 or 4, just at the very least. So you're talking about at least swap a first round picks, your first round pick next year, at the very least. And then we're talking about probably a second round pick next year. So now we're getting into, he's giving up a lot and he's getting back a great pick, but you're also not working in the manner with which he ordinarily operates. That's what I'm curious. And we just don't know yet.
You'd have to really love your depth, right? Like so when the Chiefs made that trade in 2017 to move up to get Mahomes, so they were at 27 and they moved up 17 spots to 10. Now, I will say moving from 27 to 10 is different than moving from 20 to 4. Like, it's the higher up you get towards 6, 5, 4, the tax goes up. But to move up 17 picks, they decided we love our depth so much because we're already a playoff team these last couple of years. We have weapons, we have infrastructure. We just need that quarterback. The Vikings, you can maybe make that case. They might say, hey, we got a left tackle, we got a right tackle, we got 2-star receivers and a tight end. We love Mekhi Blackmon as a cornerback. We love our safety. Like, you could make a case. We got Ivan Pace as a linebacker.
And we have cap space, so let's invest in Danielle Hunter. Yep. Let's get this quarterback on the rookie deal. Okay, keep going.
So they gave up their 27th pick, obviously. They gave up their 3rd-round pick that year, which was the 91, and then their 2018, the next year's first-round pick. I think it would be a bigger cost for the Vikings to go from 20 to like 3. It might even be 2 first-round picks or something crazy, but you'd have to really like your depth. This is the problem with what the Panthers did. The Panthers gave up all this capital, right? Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the Panthers decided we're going to give up capital and a wide receiver that we love, DJ Moore, to get the quarterback that's going to save our franchise. But the problem is they don't have like a great car to be driving, and now they're without a first-round pick, and they fired a coach, and now they're just kind of stuck for the next couple of years.
But the one thing I'll say about the Vikings is I don't think the Vikings are dysfunctional. Like, the Panthers made that trade, but they are dysfunctional. They're firing coaches right and left. Their owner sounds like a madman. I guess he told Reich at the end, but before he fired Reich, he's like, I want you to work on Bryce Young's footwork because that's what I've been told is his entire problem. So, like, we're talking about, like, the Panthers to me aren't a great example because that's a Washington Daniel Snyder type of dysfunction. But I agree. And right now, so on Tankathon, the top 5 picks go Carolina, the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Commanders, and then the Bears again. So the Bears at 1, the Patriots at 2 because of that trade that Phil just talked about. So I do think that if you were going to go up and try to get a quarterback as early as possible, I don't know that you can get to 2. because I think the Patriots are going to take a quarterback, and I think the Bears are going to take Caleb. So then the question becomes, who's the third best quarterback, and where would you need to be to land that quarterback, Dukes?
Well, where would you need to be? Are we sure that Drake May is for sure the number 2 quarterback? Like, I'll be shocked if Caleb Williams, we can nitpick.
I agree.
He was better last year than this year. I get all that. But I still think Caleb Williams will be the number 1 quarterback off the board. Are we sure that May is the number 2?
I feel like it's mostly consensus May for right now. Things can change with combines and stuff, but I feel like as of today, I think he's most likely the second guy off the board.
And let's make this very clear. I don't know that May is their guy. You know, some draft wonks have suggested that May would be a really good fit in a Kevin O'Connell offense. I can connect those dots, but I don't know that. Maybe it's the LSU quarterback. Maybe it's the Oregon quarterback. Maybe it's the Washington quarterback. You know, I've talked about J.J. McCarthy. I don't think you need to move up for J.J. McCarthy, but maybe one of those other guys, there's enough pre-draft steam where you know they are going somewhere in the top 10, maybe closer to 6 or 7, where you need to move up 14, 15, 16 spots. Yeah. I do think it takes your 1 this year, your 1 next year, and your 2 next year, perhaps more. Right, Judd? Like, when you throw out that sort of package, like, that's where you start, right? It may take more than that, but minimum, that would be the cost of doing business to move up for a quarterback if you're moving up 14, 15 spots.
But here's an alternative scenario, and I'm gonna mix it in and make it official here.
I want a mock!
Let's check out the latest mock draft from Pro Football Focus here. See what it's funny because they use their own grading systems, they use their own scouting. So sometimes PFFs where they have players going is different than like some of the mainstream or ESPN. So this is interesting. They've got the Bears taking Caleb Williams, number 1. They've got the Patriots taking Drake May, number 2. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Arizona Cardinals at 3.
Whew.
And then a little bit of a run on the trenches here with the Penn State tackle, Fashanu to the Commanders. The Bears taking the edge from UCLA, Latu, I believe. The next quarterback on this mock draft is 9 to the Saints, Jaden Daniels from LSU. And then there's not a 4th quarterback until you get to the 21st pick, which is the Minnesota Vikings. So they would be standing pat because they don't have trades on this one. So they'd be standing pat at 21, taking the 4th quarterback off the board, saving the first-round picks that they would have traded, right, to move up, and taking Bo Nix from Oregon here.
I want a mock!
Don't tell our guy Forno that.
I know our guy Tyler Fornes on Purple Daily on Draft just had an aneurysm listening to this.
Don't ruin his day.
But that's a scenario where obviously, don't you guys agree that the best case scenario would be if you don't have to give up capital and a quarterback you really like falls into your lap and it works, right? But that's a lot of wishful thinking too. That the guy that you really like falls into your lap. So,
I mean, this much is true for the most part. The Vikings, well, I think it's going to be true. How about that? That they are going to go quarterback high in April. All right, so will it be in the 20s? Will they move higher than the 20s? I think a quarterback is coming very early in this next draft. I really do.
I think Declan made a good point, though, because I think once we get through combine and pro days, that this is going to change. Like there's going to be a third QB. Oh my God, he looked good. Let me present to you a team to me that looks vulnerable and a little bit confused, and perhaps a team that can be used to your advantage if you are the Vikings. Currently on Tankathon, the 7th overall pick goes to the Giants. The Giants are in a state of great confusion because they just signed Daniel Jones to a big contract. And Daniel Jones, in their mind, 2 years or last year, had a pretty good year, right? And so he got the contract. I don't know the Giants are going to punt. I don't know that. Yes, exactly. But again, this could be where Easy Ed comes back as the hero, because I don't know that the Giants are necessarily in the market yet to draft a quarterback. So to me, if we're talking about more of the Mahomes equivalency, not as far as the quarterback goes, but the positioning of how you did it, the Giants are much more in that ballpark of, okay, now the trade's a lot, but it's not going up to 2 or 3, which would cost you an absolute boatload. I think the Giants might be the team to try to take advantage of.
You also have to keep in mind, too, like to that point, Patrick Mahomes wasn't the first quarterback off the board. Deshaun Watson was higher, right? Was it Trubisky?
Mitch Trubisky was higher.
The Josh Allen year, didn't the Bills move up to get Josh Allen? He wasn't the first. So you could still, if you like a guy, he's the third guy off the board, he's toolsy, and you feel like he can be molded. It doesn't always have to be trading up to number 2 to get the consensus, second quarterback off the board.
That's where the LSU quarterback Daniels offers a ton of intrigue. Just that body, though, I would worry. I really would. Durability. Everything else about him, though, I mean, he's been in college forever. I mean, he was throwing passes to Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State a few years ago. Feels like Brandon's been in the NFL for a few years now. Mm-hmm. But you watch Jaden Daniels, man alive. Like, he's winning me over. Put it that way. Very much winning me over. And I'm glad he's one of the Heisman finalists.
Josh Allen draft was 2018. The first overall pick of the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield. The third overall pick of the Jets, Sam Darnold. Josh Allen was the third quarterback to go in that draft.
There
and
you go.
He went exactly at 7.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, some of that too, you wonder, like, circumstance. The Bills, as it turned out, the Bills had some good infrastructure. It took a couple of years, right? But they wound up putting together a coaching staff. I always thought Baker was like, he's fine as like a fringe kind of bridge quarterback now. He's actually having a pretty good year in Tampa. But you wonder circumstance, and that's where the Vikings come in, where they would seem like one of the 6 to 8 franchises that's just really well positioned to draft a quarterback and not think about all the teams that we mentioned the Panthers, the Browns with Baker for 20 years. The Browns the teams that are drafting a quarterback desperately hoping that guy can save their crappy franchise. That's not the position the Vikings are in. Right. They don't need the guy. I mean, you can plug in Josh Dobbs and win a couple of games off the street, right? Like, you've got a good enough infrastructure where it should help that quarterback thrive.
I think it's as good an infrastructure as there is in the league, frankly. When looking at all these teams, the potential of drafting a quarterback, I mean, you laid it out, Phil. I mean, elite left tackle, elite right tackle, even though he wasn't good 2 Mondays ago against the Bears, you still take Brian O'Neill at right tackle over most right tackles in the league. You've got 2 elite receivers. You're going to pay Justin Jefferson, so he'll be here. Jordan Addison's still in the rookie deal. You paid the tight end. We can debate where he is pecking order-wise, but certainly among the top 5 to 7 tight ends in the game, there is so much to like. The head coach knows what he's doing, and I get it. In the moment, you're like, what? KOC stunk against the Bears 2 Mondays ago, but you'll still take KOC over so many others in this league. I'm just saying, the Vikings are incredibly well-positioned to strike on a young quarterback.
And you can think that the QB, I think, is going to be a massive upgrade or save the franchise. The question is what you have to teach that guy. What's the patience? I mean, the Jets are a dumpster fire. At QB, they're a dumpster fire. The Jets are you know what the Jets are? The Jets are a worse version of the Vikings when the Vikings went out and got Favre, in the sense that the Rodgers move is punting on life. It's basically like, we can't do this, so let's get an established guy. The other thing about KOC that's fair to say is, I think it's fair to question him at times, play calling wise and in-game wise, but that's a very different thing from development, right? Like, Kevin's done nothing that I have seen that makes me question development or eye for talent. He has done things in game that I hope he grows from, and I think most guys do, but that's a very different issue. So, like, I am not concerned. I'm not actively that Kellen Mond, succeeding or not, after being acquired at the deadline, is in no way, shape, or form a referendum on Kevin. Like, it's got nothing to do with Kevin. It's got to do with your starter got hurt, you're sort of screwed. What can you plug and play, right? But like, if anyone's like, well, look at Mond regressing, and it's like, okay, folks, Kellen Mond Mond.
I was like, where are you going? Like, Mond, where are you going with this? Okay,
Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs taking a step back has nothing to do with. Oh my God, it's O'Connell's fault. It's not O'Connell's fault.
It's not O'Connell's fault. I mean, Dobbs has been here for 2 seconds. It's not O'Connell's fault. I mean, I'm a big KOC fan, so, maybe you're talking to the wrong person, but I would bet heavily on KOC with a young quarterback. I just would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, before we continue on with more scoopage here, let's talk about carpet cleaning season, okay? Let's have a difficult conversation about how dirty your house is right now, everyone. Okay, it's holiday season. Snap out of it here. You got family gatherings. You don't want to be embarrassed to welcome people into your home, your dirty home. I personally get serenity from a clean house. I'm sure many of you are like me. And Zero Res is here to help you get the job done in a safe and effective way. They'll do it for you. A 4.9 rating out of 5 on Google with 17,000 reviews. So it's trust your peers as they review this at a near perfect level. Call Zero Res today at 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the Score North special to get 3 rooms Zero Resified for just $129. That's 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $129 when you go to ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES and say you want the Score North special. Spell it forward or backwards, it spells the same, Zero Res. Okay, Josh Dobbs is the starter here, Doogs. Kevin O'Connell has said, I'm curious how, this is just speculative here, but how many mistakes does he get before they turn to like a Nick Mullins? I mean, this is clearly not a commitment for the rest of the season. I don't know that it's a commitment for a full game if he comes out and struggles in the first half. So what's your sense as to the commitment level here going into this Raiders game?
Well, what does Sunday afternoon exactly look like? I mean, is he throwing 2 picks, not deflections, but just outright mistakes, making the wrong read, underthrowing a receiver? You know, let's say it's halftime on Sunday, late afternoon in Las Vegas. Like, what does it look like? Or is he making plays with his legs? Does the addition of Justin Jefferson, you know, easier throws where accuracy doesn't necessarily come into question like it did in Denver, like it did at US Bank Stadium against Chicago? I need to know exactly what it looks like. I think the leash is long enough, Phil. But yeah, I mean, this isn't some sort of, you know, announcement that no matter what, Josh Dobbs is starting on December 16th against Cincy, December 24th against Detroit, December 31st against Green Bay, then January 7th against Detroit. Then all goes well, and he starts that first playoff weekend, whether in Detroit, San Francisco, wherever. I mean, let's wait and see. But certainly KOC, you know, I mean, I think he acknowledged enough that, hey, there's enough stuff that I can do to help Josh Dobbs. But I think behind the scenes, you know, in those conversations with the quarterback's coach, with Dobbs, that KOC took a lot of ownership for what took place against the Bears. That KOC knows he can help Josh so much more. So I feel like unless there's like 2 or 3 just glaring mistakes on Sunday, we will see Josh Dobbs play that entire game against the Raiders.
And it sounds like from what KOC said, and also from what Dobbs said in his press conference, that there has been a lot more communication and ideas going back and forth. My guess is that
and that's what KOC does, right? I mean, we're not used to it because of the Zim relationship with Kirk, but Kirk and KOC, you know, always had that relationship.
Right, but when Dobbs was acquired, I think the issue was it was so quick, and then it was game. They finally had a week to sort of take a step back, and it sounds like they spent time before the bye started in earnest together watching film. I think the biggest thing on Sunday is probably ball security from a fumble standpoint. That's my guess, because I think they're going to give Josh more chance to run probably. And so I actually don't know if it's picks. I think the bigger concern is if you can't hang on to the football, what are we doing here? Like if you're going to be a mobile quarterback, there's nothing more important than ball security. So I think it probably would bug O'Connell more if Dobbs has any problem with ball security as far as what he does on the ground as opposed to passing maybe.
Well, and then think about the machine that Max Crosby is now. I know he sat out practice yesterday. He's been dealing with a knee issue. Heck, he was doubtful in their last game, right? Ended up ultimately playing. So I presume, I mean, he's an Iron Man. I presume that Max Crosby will play on Sunday, but I guess today's practice will be the telltale sign. But I imagine Max Crosby plays. But like that guy's motor is off the charts, right? Like not sure maybe Aiden Hutchinson, but not sure anybody has a motor quite like his, right? So even if Dobbs is 8-10 yards down the field, Crosby is going to be in pursuit. So you know that Max is going to be trying to strip the ball. So yeah, I mean, that is something to keep an eye on. I still think it's the decision-making and the accuracy and where is the ball being placed. Yes, on the turnovers, yes, on ball security, but I still think ultimately, you know, what passes is he making? What decisions is he making? Is it the right decision? How accurate is the ball. But I'm still telling you, like, unless it's 3, like, I think it's closer to like 3 glaring mistakes. And I get it. Nick Mullins is the backup, right? So, I mean, he's healthy. He's fine. All right. So Nick Mullins can play. But I think once the decision was made, heck, I think it was probably made late last week, before Sunday when Diana Rossini tossed it out on Sunday. I think it was actually made a couple days prior to that, right? Once the decision was made, Thursday, Friday-ish to go with Dobbs, I think KOC is going to give him plenty of opportunity to keep this thing going. But in the same breath, I'm saying, like, he struggles enough. It's not like, for sure he's the quarterback on December 24th against Detroit. Let's just see how it plays out. But I think it would have to be like multiple glaring mistakes for them to pull the cord.
If you have other Viking stuff, feel free to unleash. Otherwise, 16-4.
Yeah, well, yeah. We'll get to 16-4. Yeah, soon to be 17-4. We'll get to 16-4 in a second. But briefly, Caleb Evans, remember, he told me leading into the Bears game, I'll be good to go. Well, he sits out the Bears game, missed the Broncos game, missed the Bears game. He is good to go this week, coming back from the calf injury. You talk to enough people in Egan, on background, they will tell you it's not Byron Murphy Jr., who has not had, to me, a good year. Average, like, I don't think he's been a train wreck, but maybe average would be the way to describe Byron Murphy Jr.'s year. That a Caleb Evans, and yes, they love Mekhi Blackman. Eventually, maybe as soon as, heck, in 3 weeks, we'll say Mekhi Blackman is their best cornerback. But you talk to enough people in Egan on background, they will tell you in this moment, a Caleb Evans is their best cornerback. So they are happy to welcome him back on Sunday in Las Vegas. There still is optimism on Marcus Davenport that even after the procedure on his left ankle, that he'll be able to come back at some point. Now, hey, durability is a question mark with him. Yeah, he may be back. The next thing you know, he's out. But there is still optimism that he is not out for the season. Now, what does that look like? Do they open up the practice window next week, or is it the week after? Is he back on, let's say, December 31st? Or could it perhaps be December 24th? Some fluidity there. But I'm just telling you, as of now, like, the Vikings have at least some level of optimism that Marcus Davenport will be back this year. That optimism remains also on Jordan Hicks, that Jordan Hicks could be back as soon as the December 24th game against Detroit.
Yeah. Boy, the vibes at Target Center right now. I mean, I've probably been to, 5-6 games this year. I wasn't there last night, but you could even feel it just on TV. It is. I feel like Minnesota fans over the last 20 or 30 years, we cheer and we do our thing, but we tend to operate with a certain level of nervousness and apprehension. We need to see something good happen, then we'll get into the game. I think Vikings fans will get into it on a third down or something, but it's very much, we've got like 2 generations of cautiously optimistic sports fans. And then you walk into Target Center and it's just this celebration every night. The people that are saying, why don't we wait until May and then we can decide if this team's good? I don't know. There's a lot of fans that have been waiting for this for 20 years, and they are celebrating it right now at Target Center. It's a blast. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know that this team is better than the Nuggets once you get into March and April, Doogie, but I think it's fair to say this is one of the 5 best teams in the NBA. Pretty much everyone in the national media is still sleeping on them largely in terms of the stuff I've been sampling. Finch was on the Herd with Cowherd yesterday, so they are getting a little bit of national attention. But it's just like, what a 180-degree difference from where things stood a year ago. We got Rudy and Kyle Anderson throwing haymakers at the end of the season last year. Just what a turnaround for this franchise.
Absolutely. I mean, it helps that they were on national TV last night. Kendrick Perkins, talking about them, tweeting about them. I was on my drive in today listening to Dan Patrick. His stat of the day was Timberwolves related. You mentioned Finch being on Colin Cowherd's show. So yeah, there's a little bit more of a national buzz. To me, yeah, the future matters. We need to talk about the future, but celebrate the now, right? When you are number 1 in the Western Conference for now, what is it, 18 or 19 consecutive days or 17, something like that? When previously, I don't think you've ever been first place in the Western Conference for more than an 8, 9, 10-day stretch going back many, many, many years. You can celebrate something like that. Heck, I feel like the Minnesota sports fan, after the Twins breakthrough, right, winning a playoff series for the first time since 2002, right? Now we're awaiting the Wolves winning a playoff series for the first time since 2004. But I wonder if some of that Twins optimism, and I get it. It changed quickly there when you played Houston, but whatever you want to term it, right? But the Twins break through in October. Is there a carryover effect? There certainly is a carryover effect. Enough Twins fans who are Wolves fans, right? I just wonder if maybe that plays into it. And certainly there are just Wolves fans, right, that don't care about the Twins, but loving what they're seeing. I mean, Rudy Gobert is playing at an incredibly high level. I've got the box score in front of me. How about his plus-minus last night?
Yeah,
31. Plus 31 for Rudy last night. Then I saw the social media clip from the Timberwolves. The way he walks in the locker room, high-fiving each and every guy at their stall, right? Because he did the ESPN post-game interview, so he was stuck on the floor longer than his teammates, so he gets in the locker room last, goes around to each and every guy. And I had heard question marks about Rudy's leadership in Utah. Certainly there wasn't leadership last year, but you talk about his maturation on the court. He's also matured a lot off the court. So give Rudy Gobert a ton of credit. Then just what about Mike Conley Jr.? It's Gobert. It's Mike Conley Jr. Like, Ant wasn't good last night. He found different ways to contribute. 7 rebounds, 6 assists.
Got to
he
the
missed
line.
13 shots, right? I think when he's fully healthy, the hip isn't 100%. When he's fully healthy, I think he makes like 6 of the 13 shots he missed. Like, I thought they were pretty good looks that he'll make, right? But it's not like Ant was good last night. It's not like he played great last night. I still think the Spurs had a bunch of good looks that they missed. Like between Wemby and Zach Collins, they missed. I've got the box score right here. So Wemby goes 4 of 13. Collins goes 6 of 20. So brutal. 10 of 33. So 23 30%. Missed shots between Collins and Wemby.
Some good defense, though, you guys.
I thought they had some good looks. Yeah, at times. Sure.
But there was some good defense.
They are the number
Second
one
half.
defense in the NBA, Judd. Right? That's their identity. That's their calling card. That's why you feel like they can sustain a high level of success, because the defense will continue. The shot making, that'll fluctuate. The defense, though, them playing at such a high level, like it feels like they will absolutely end up at the end of the year as minimum the 4th or 5th best defense in the league, if not 1, 2, or 3. That is very, very sustainable.
Where does the Gobert trade in not just Wolves, in NBA history, let's say going back 30 years, where does this one rank as far as the seismic shift from like a guy who in his first year gets traded, big name too, but he gets traded first year, it's just a dud, doesn't really work out. And then the next year comes back and it's total opposite. Like this to me is what makes this would be like if at some point in time Herschel Walker had flipped a switch and become an absolute star for a year. And I don't think he rushed for 1,000 yards in a single season as a Viking. That to me is what's so impressive, is that you've gone from a trade that a lot of people thought might be one of the worst trades in the history of the league to a trade now where I think it's fair to say Tim Conley, that's pretty damn impressive what a veteran player who was good previously, but is better than anyone's really seen him, is playing right now.
Yeah, you monologued long enough for me to try to rack my brain.
I tried.
Nothing instantly comes to mind. But yeah, like in this moment, right? Remember this time last year, and hey, I've always said it was an easy yes for Utah. I'm not changing that stance, right? But like, it's coming to fruition now. Like, you can't say it was a bad trade anymore. Yes, you can say it was a good trade for Utah acquiring all those assets. But like, you think about Utah last night losing by 50. They lost by 50. Luka Doncic had a triple-double in the first half.
Yep.
Right? Utah went on a little mini run last year, but now, they're coming back to the, perceived bottom of the league pack this year. What is Utah's future? So they've got all these assets, but what exactly is their future? Now with Dwayne Wade involved and some other smart people, you figure Utah has a relatively bright future with all those assets, but you still wonder, like, what direction exactly are they going? You feel really good right now about the Wolves. Right. And hey, if you want to knock trades, now, hey, I watched a good amount of Clippers Nuggets last night and a nice win for the Clippers. LA's playing better now with James Harden 7-3 in their last 10. But you think about that Clippers trade with OKC, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all the other assets that went from the Clippers to the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? If you want to knock a trade, what about the Paul George Clippers trade? Or even the Donovan Mitchell trade Utah to Cleveland. Now, Cleveland, they've been okay, right? But they lost in the first round last year. How far will Cleveland go this year, even though I like their roster and I'm biased because J.B. Bickerstaff, the head coach, is a friend. But you still wonder, right? I mean, there's this chatter about will Cleveland have to trade Donovan Mitchell? The Knicks are chasing a star. Who is that star? Can they get Embiid from Philadelphia? Okay, maybe not. Okay, well, then it's Donovan Mitchell, right? You're not hearing as much Karl Anthony Towns chatter with the Wolves playing so well. Towns chatter to New York. But I'm just saying, when we talk about, these so-called bad trades, you can't call it a bad trade anymore when Rudy Gobert is playing as well as he's playing.
Yep. Dukes, empty that scoop bag for us here. What else you got for us on this Reckless Speculation Thursday?
Well, I got some questions from our Tuesday back and forth when I threw out some info on Ethan Kaliakmanis. So let me clarify. So I was told by somebody close to Ethan that PJ, it wasn't in a press conference setting or a media type setting, a radio interview, something like that, but it was around others. I don't know how many others. I don't know if it was a full team meeting or just some staff members, some players, but it was more than PJ and Ethan present, where PJ was just saying, Ethan, it's mistake after mistake. Like Ethan felt like, it was all on him. You have this 4-game losing streak to finish the regular season. Yes, Ethan, there's things he needs to work on, clearly, but it's not all on him, right? Mm-hmm. When you have 3 different offensive coordinators over a 3-year stretch when he's been here, when your receivers are top 5 among Power 5 programs in drops, right? So it's not like Ethan's receivers helped him during the season. That it just felt like Ethan, and hey, Ethan was told, hey, you're not guaranteed to start the bowl game. Right, so there were just all these factors, but it flipped fast. Like if you had asked me before the Purdue game, will Ethan Kaliakmanis be back as the Gophers quarterback? I would have told you, yeah, 100%. Like, row the boat, Sky-U-Ma. He's all in. It changed really, really fast, in particular, right after that Purdue game. But that's what I mean, that PJ had said some stuff about Ethan, I was told, with some other people present. I don't know the amount of people. It was not a public setting. But that Ethan felt like, hey, why are you singling me out when this is a team thing? It isn't just on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't want to dump on a kid here too much, but see ya.
That's the nature of, college athletics, right? Not just football,
everyone gets their feelings hurt too. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, no, they're not giving me enough love and adulation, or oh, no, there's going to be competition because I might not be
He was okay with the competition, I was told. Yeah.
Okay.
But it is a business, right? We love the term student athlete. Now, with NIL, these guys being compensated, maybe not as much here as other places, but it is a big-time business. So, yeah, we're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds, so in many ways still kids, not full-fledged adults, but guess what? You're going to be treated like a full-fledged adult because there's so much money at stake.
Yeah.
The scheme is what I would have said back to Peach as I walked out the door. I would have said, you know what? I'll try and cut down on mistakes. How about you come up with a scheme? See ya. And then I would have slammed the door.
Well, I think, if you got Ethan in a moment of complete truth, complete honesty, there probably would be something to be said about that. Yeah.
A circus act.
I'm also waiting on the Gophers athletics front, an update on Dawson Garcia. So how bad is the foot injury? We think it's an ankle sprain, but trying to get more clarity on that today. I've got a couple text messages out. I was hoping to get a text message back while we were doing this. That has not happened. So I am awaiting word. I guess if there ever was a time to get injured, I suppose it's now, where the Gophers don't have another meaningful game for a few weeks. Not until their next Big Ten game, which is still a few weeks away. They've got some non-conference games coming up. Florida Gulf Coast, Maine, I believe. They've got winnable games without Dawson the next couple weeks if this happens to be a multi-week type injury. But I don't have any clarity yet this morning. I am awaiting word.
There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department.
Then one more I was with. I don't know if I mentioned this on Tuesday or not. Jake Irvin, my buddy, who pitches for the Washington Nationals, Bloomington native. I was with him in the lab the other day for a TV shoot. Anyway, he's working on a new pitch. It's got slider/cutter characteristics. So these pitchers, they love to tweak stuff in the winter. So he's working on his changeup. He only threw his changeup 5% of the time.
I didn't say that because I thought the same thing.
What's that?
That's a slutter.
Yeah, slutter.
I
Yeah.
don't know if we can say that. We're not FCC regulated here, I don't think. Anyways, all right, Doogie, good stuff there. A great reckless speculation Thursday.
You got it. And I
here.
wish I had some Twins news for you. I mean, they've had very little
okay.
dialogue on Michael A. Taylor, right? All signs point to Michael A. Taylor
We got Twins
leaving.
news.
I still think Jorge Polanco
Def Leppard
is
from
traded.
Journey.
Yeah. Well,
and Steve Miller Band. Okay,
I
and
know.
Steve Miller Band. I love Steve Miller Band.
It's just it's
Not
been
gonna
a
do it.
slow go. But I do think eventually they've had enough trade dialogue that one of these talks comes to fruition. I still think Polanco, maybe Kepler too, but certainly Polanco. And yeah, I mean, they want to move Farmer, so I can see Farmer too. But certainly Polanco, if I had to bet on anybody moving, it would be Polanco eventually.
Yes. All right, Dukes, good stuff.
All right,
We gotta
boys, have a
run.
great weekend. See ya.
We'll see you guys on Purple Daily for some more quarterback discussion and speculation. This has been a Reckless Speculation Thursday edition of The Scoop.